Life Unrehearsed, brought to you by Lianas Senior Transition Support, specialists in downsizing and seniors residences.
Welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Matt Del Vecchio, specializing in life transitions, downsizing in the senior living industry. Corey is off today. In my day-to-day life, I'm the owner of Lianas Senior Transition Support, where we help families with the whole process of transitioning loved ones from their home or condo into seniors' residences, everything from independent living all the way to long-term care. And it's always a challenging time for families. And very often I hear that the mom or dad will need to move one day, but in the meantime, they would prefer to stay at home. The dilemma is that spouses, children, and grandchildren are experiencing unprecedented stress and responsibility trying to take care of their loved ones, especially now in the pandemic. Many people are going back to work, even to the offices. And in order to do so, they want to get some additional support at home. And as I see every day, it's much easier said than done. Well, to help us get some answers, we have Tim Thomas on the line. Tim is one of the owners of Home Care Assistance in Montreal. I know Tim well, and I've seen him in action. Very knowledgeable, very compassionate, and a chip off the old block. He and his dad, Tim Sr., run a great company. Tim, welcome to Life Unrehearsed.
Thank you, Matt. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for joining me. And such a hot topic these days. You and I hear about this daily. But I guess one of the first questions I would have for you, Tim, is why hire private home care when you can get it through the CLSC?
Yeah, that is a common question that we do receive. Well, I mean, it's two very different things. I think when you look at the services of the CLSC, they tend to be very task specific, I would say. So they relate to things like medication distribution, perhaps some hygiene care. There could be some respite, which would give a break to a spouse or a family member. But, you know, not to knock the CLSC, we know they're doing the best they can with the resources they have. But sometimes there's a lack of consistency. So you could have a kind of a turning over of personnel that could occur. The caregivers might come at different times, and that might frustrate the families. So they tend to look on the private side to get something a little bit of a higher quality, a little bit more consistent, and really that's where we come in. So it's two very different things. We kind of look at the holistic side of care, lifestyle-based. We want to make an impact on the quality of life of seniors. And the CLSC is obviously there to just, you know, make sure that the nuts and bolts of care are looked after.
Yeah, you know, and I also see that as well. And I think you brought up a very good point. They really are doing the best they can, but with the limited resources that they have, and so many families will come back to us saying, just, it's not enough care. We need more hours. We need more help. And it's so nice to know that families do have that option to top it off or even go exclusively with the private home care. And in your world, Tim, in home care, what are some of the most common services that you would provide to families?
Sure. Well, I think, you know, if you know the term, it's called the activities of daily living. And, you know, that could include anything from sort of the bathing and grooming aspect of hygiene care, things like meal preparation, assistance with errands, light housekeeping tasks, things like doing laundry. You know, if we're going to be preparing a meal, making sure the household's running smoothly, the kitchen is tidy, the fridge is tidy. And then, you know, what we like to focus on, because obviously that's the important element for sure, but there's so much more that goes into care. There's you know, the lifestyle factors that are going to really make an impact on quality of life. And that could be, you know, physical activity. It could be cognitive stimulation. It could be making sure that the seniors are getting that social side of care, interacting with their family members, and having a companion that they can bond with, and hopefully develop, you know, a great relationship, and that person can also motivate them to continue to do the things that they want to do in life. And
I like the fact that you really do customize care. I believe you have care managers that would first go in and do an assessment to provide that customized care, isn't it?
Exactly. So similar to the way the CLSC does, let's say, a care consultation, they would assign a social worker. We have a very similar program. We have nurses and social workers that function as our care managers, and really the first step in our process is to properly understand the case. Every case is unique. Everyone's needs are specific. So we really want to, as you said, customize that care to the senior themselves. So we spend, you know, as much time as possible, typically an hour, if not more, really building a care plan alongside a family member or the senior themselves, just to really understand their daily routine, their likes and dislikes, obviously the care that they require, the specifics, their personality type. You know, what is going to allow us to make a good match, to find the right caregiver for them. That's going to allow them to age in place, stay at home for as long as they would like to. It's a big part of the process. And then that care manager as well needs to supervise the employee. They need to make adjustments to the care plan as time goes on. So we try to take as much burden off of families to really manage this caregiver, so to speak, so that it's a seamless process to stay home.
You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Matt Delvecchio here, and we're talking about the challenges of home care with Tim Thomas, owner of Home Care Assistance. So typically a care manager would go in, they do an assessment. In general, for private home care companies, I would imagine there's some minimum in terms of hours per day or hours per week. How does that work?
Yeah, it will vary, from company to company. So we always recommend to clients calling in or potential clients, to do your research and to call around and see what the best option is for you. Our approach is that where, we feel we need to offer that consistency to our clients, which means providing the same caregiver on a regular basis. And in order to be able to do that, we have established a minimum threshold. And it really allows us to recruit, the best people in the industry and place them really on these long-term contracts. So the way it works with home care assistance is we have a minimum of a 4-hour shift consecutively each time a caregiver visits. And on a weekly basis, so in a given 7-day period, we require 16 hours of care.
Okay, so that makes sense. But you brought up just a very good point, and I hear this all the time, particularly with getting help from the CLSC, that there's some inconsistency in caregivers, a lot of turnover, and I think you really take pride in that, in trying to keep a consistent caregiver, which is so important for the people receiving the services.
Absolutely. It really is crucial to the success of care, and it's definitely the hardest, the most difficult element to guarantee. And in the past, we did minimum levels of care below this 16-hour threshold. And we turned over caregivers because, the best people in the industry, they want consistent schedules. They want to, in best case scenario, work 40 hours a week for one client. So we try to make sure that really they're not working for more than 2 clients on a weekly basis. That'll get them that 40-hour schedule and ensure that consistency for both them, their families, and their clients.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So this is Life Unrehearsed here with Matt, and that's Tim Thomas from Home Care Assistance. You're on the phone with clients most of the day. What are some of their biggest challenges that they're facing?
Well, I think the pandemic has raised, a lot of concerns and challenges around the aging process. I think everyone was apprehensive to have help in their home. And having a caregiver provided by the CLSC, for instance, that's seeing, maybe 8 to 10 patients a day, that was a big concern. So again, that kind of comes back to that minimum we established. And even during the pandemic, we had to move that minimum up because we really didn't want the risk of caregivers running around, to multiple households. So kind of managing that process, working in conjunction with the CLSC, as you said, is a big part of what we do, and managing the budgetary side of care. How can we meet the budget, meet the care needs, and allow a senior to age in place? So those are some common issues. Yeah,
very common. In fact, we're going to address budgeting issues and costs on the second part of this interview. Tim, we're already out of time. I really want to thank you for spending some time with us, really helping and informing us. How could people get a hold of you and Home Care Assistance Montreal?
Sure. Well, we have a great website and a fantastic blog with a ton of information on there about our services and just information on the aging process. So you can see that at homecareassistancemontreal.ca. So homecareassistancemontreal.ca, or you can give us a call anytime, 24/7 at 514-907-5065.
All right, Tim, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much.
All right, when we come back, we'll hear some tips and tricks on how to navigate the healthcare system, and we'll hear about some very generous tax credits, even for private home care services. But first, we're going to head to the CJD Traffic Center with an update with Jill Fitzgerald.
Life Unrehearsed, brought to you by Lianas Senior Transition Support, specialists in downsizing and seniors residences.
You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Matt Delvecchio, and we're talking home care dilemma for families with a little bit of a Habs theme in the background, celebrating our interview with Dirk Irvin earlier on. If you caught that, spouses, children, and grandchildren are experiencing unprecedented stress and responsibility trying to take care of their loved ones. And the dilemma is only expected to get worse as our population ages. Well, to help us out, I'd like to welcome Andrew DeFore onto the show. Andrew is the owner of Customized Home Care, runs a great business with lots of qualified caregivers, and he has a real pulse of the community and excellent knowledge about the healthcare system. Andrew, welcome to Life Unrehearsed.
Well, thank you for having me, Matt. Thank you.
Yeah, great for you to be on. And as mentioned, you have a wealth of knowledge, and we want to tap into that to help families. So, can you first give us the process to access home care services from the CLSC?
Well, yes, thank you, Matt, for that question. Now, the process, there's kind of, we say, the fast process and then the longer process. For example, if a loved one ends up in the hospital as a result of a medical emergency and they've been in the hospital for a while, when they are ready to be discharged, or the doctor, the physician has given the medical clearance for them to be discharged, there's an interdisciplinary meeting that happens. It could include a social worker or occupational therapist. And it's at that meeting where they decide what home care services will be needed when the person ends up going back home. And so we always, counsel families at that point to chime in and say, describe for that interdisciplinary team what's happening prior to your loved one ending up in the hospital so that they could design the program for you. So once it's determined what the home care program is, and the institution, whether it be the hospital or the rehab center, will send a communique to your local CLSC, and it will then, your home care services will be initiated in your local area. And so it's really a faster process because you're having the institutions themselves speak to each other.
And I think you're bringing up such a good point that I just want to emphasize about writing down the type of services and help that you may need, because just to get those meetings on one of these interdisciplinary meetings and discharge, it's best to be prepared. So that's kind of the short track. And then traditionally, if it's not a hospital situation, it would be a little bit of a longer way. How do you go about that?
So it can be just simply, you call on behalf of your loved one, the CLSC home care team that's within your local area of the CLSC, and describe. It doesn't have to be necessarily a son or a daughter. It can be a friend or somebody who knows the person who needs home care support. So you would call the home care team, also once again describe what's going on. And from there, they would say, okay, somebody would call you back. Now, that's a little bit of a longer process. Sometimes it can be, depending on where you are in the city. It could take anywhere from months to up to a year. But of late, what we've seen is those wait times are coming down as there's new money into the system. So we're starting to see a little bit less of a wait time. But you would have to be patient, and ultimately, if you're not getting a response, we say call back and advocate. Just continue to call back and advocate so that they will keep you in their radar, and for that ultimate assessment when it happens, because that's what they're going to do. They'll give an assessment once they come, and so there's some preparation that needs to happen on your side prior to that assessment. So you'll have enough time to prepare, but for the assessment, but it's a little bit of a long wait.
Mm-hmm. Matt Delvecchio here on Life Unrehearsed. We're talking to Andrew Dufour, owner of Customized Home Care, and like you explained, it's frustrating for some families. Again, the CLSC is doing the best they can, but there are limited resources. As a result, there's waiting times, or even if you are given services, you may require more services, and many families will also hire private home care. So now, what's the difference here if I were to go about hiring private home care?
Well, on the public, when you go through the CLSC, their home care program is funded by the government. So, but when you're hiring private home care, you would do a search on your own. So you would either do a Google search, home care in Montreal, or your CLSC, if you've said you need additional support, they have a list of many of the home care companies in the city, and they will sort of give you three options to choose from, or they would say, here's the list, give them a call and go through them. Most people will do a combination of the two. Mm-hmm. They'll look at the list, do a Google search, and then they will call up their home care company and start asking about the services, the types of services that they provide, the types of caregivers that they have. Are they background checked? What are the references like? How long are the employees versus whether they are contractors? And so when you start asking those questions, you start getting an idea of what home care company or the landscape of home care companies are. And of course, the most important thing is what's the price on that one would pay, either on an hourly rate or as a monthly payment.
Right. And now, speaking of those costs, Andrew, we're just quickly running out of time, and I really want to get to some of the government programs and subsidies that may be available to families that they may not be aware of.
Well, yeah, I really love this subject because it really is one that empowers a lot of families that they don't know about some of these programs. So there are programs there are subsidies that you get or tax credits you get when you file your tax returns. But the ones we really like are the ones where families are able to finance their home care in the year. There are two programs that are really at the top of the list. The first one is what we call Chèque d'emploi service. And the next one is what we call the Home Support Services Credit, which is 40% on what you pay for home care services. So for the Chèque d'emploi service, great program. The CLSC social worker will give you a block of time. They'll say, okay, we'll allot you 10 hours a week, or 40 hours a month, or more, depending upon your situation. And then you would hire your own caregiver. And then the CLSC would pay that caregiver on your behalf. That person would be an employee of yours, but the administration of it is handled by the CLSC.
That's
and
fantastic.
It allows you to have flexibility in whom you hire.
Really a nice program, and it's called Chèque d'emploi. And the other one concerning the home tax credit.
Yes, that's a great program that Quebec initiated well over 10 years ago, and it allows families, when they spend on home care services, they get to claim 35% of what they paid back, and they get it as a direct deposit into the recipient's bank account. It's usually your loved ones who are 70 years or older. And it's deposited in their account, and it's as you file the claim, it's deposited. It can be on a monthly basis, and you determine how often you want to get it, and it helps you finance your program. It's 35%, so that there's a cap, of course.
Right.
They'll give you a maximum of $9,000 a year, but the good news is in the last budget, they are sweetening the amount of the tax credit, so it will move from 35 to 40%. So it's a real incentive for families and a real help for them to finance the home care over the year.
It is a great news, far overdue, but nice to see the government's putting some more money to help support families. Andrew, we're already out of time. Thank you very much. How can people get a hold of you?
Well, you can go to our website, takebacktheirdignity.ca, exactly like it's said, and you can chat with us. You can get our number, call us, or you can email us, and we would look forward to talking with you.
Wonderful. That's Andrew DeFore, owner of Customized Home Care. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Okay. Thank you, Matt.
All right. Next week, we're going to hear from internationally renowned forensic anthropologist and New York Times best-selling author, Kathy Reichs. You've probably read one of her books, and she is just a wonderful lady. Anything to do with bones, she's the one. Thanks for tuning into Life Unrehearsed, and many thanks to our technical producer, Jimmy G. You can listen to Life Unrehearsed here on CJD 800 every Saturday at 3 p.m.